So hello once again and welcome to our channel, Liontabs Creations. During the week or the past 2 weeks, I was making some multiple strand bracelets, and I was thinking of ways to finish them, especially when I didn't have the exact measurements. And so I came up with these methods, and I thought, well, I might as well make a tutorial over it. So this is the first one. This is a 3-strand in pearls. I just used pearls. You can use any beads you like to make your stranded necklace. I just use pearls for the purposes of this tutorial. Now, the first method is using a guard. That's the horseshoe shaped little thing that we have. I don't know if you can see it. It's sort of horse shaped. That's the using, that is the first method. Remember when we made, so I made a tutorial using making multiple strand bracelets where we used a clasp, either 3-strand, 4-strand. We use this type of clasp or any type of multi-strand clasp, and we used these to guard, to make the rolls straight. These are good for when you have a particular measurement you want to use, you want to make the bracelet for. But in the case where we want to make a bracelet and we're not sure of the measurement, I think these methods are much better. So first of all, I put the beads on the strand. At the end, I always like to use a tiny bead at the end so that when you're finishing it, it doesn't bulk up. So if you're using the same type of beads for all strands, then it's fine. If not, then you need to be careful on how you put the strands into your guards, to be very careful. So I've stranded this one. Let's try and finish. To finish it, you have to use one of these that is big enough for your thread. You know, everything comes in different sizes. To strand this, to bead this, I used 30mm illusion cord. This is what I used for this one. Now, when you're using crimps or things like that on this type of nylon, transparent nylon wire, you need to be careful, because when you're crimping, it can cut the cord, the wire. There are crimps and crimp covers that are specially made for when you want to use this illusion cord. So you just have to be very careful with how you crimp. So what I did was to pass it through the shoe-like guard, put a crimp bead and crimp it. So that's just a simple method. Just put all strands through the guard, through the crimp, through the clasp, and crimp it. Now, because we don't know exactly what the measurement is, we are going to use an extender on the other side. So if you bead the strands at 7 inches, which is possibly, you know, the normal measurement, and then at the end of it you add an extender, then it should be okay for any measurement. So the other end, we just pass it through. Sorry, we need to put on the crimp. I've forgotten the crimp. We need to put the crimp on. Pass it through the guard. The guard is there just to make sure the threads don't fray during wear use, you know, because of wear and tear. And then we add our closure, which is a split ring. You can use jump ring if it's strong enough. I always like to use split rings where I can. I've added on the extended chain already. So all we need to do now is to pass it on to the guard. There you go. And then pass this end back through the crimp bead. So there we have it, pass through the guard and also through the crimp. If you can see that, it's passed through, the thread is passed through the card so that will keep it from fraying. We've added on the closure, the extender hook. I use the split ring, and then I pass the cord back through the crimp. So you just use your crimping tool or your pliers, whichever one you use, to crimp it and add your crimp cover if you do use them. I always use crimp covers, so if you like, you can use your crimp cover. That is the half moon shaped sort of metal cover that you can use to cover it. You use the correct size. If you use something that's too small, it won't cover it, or you don't use the crimp at all. So therefore, you've now got your bracelet. You can use any of the links within the wire, or you can use the first one. It all depends. And then if the person wrist is bigger than this, they can use any of the hooks, any of the links in this one. So that is one way of finishing your bracelet. Another way of finishing it, when you don't have, if you don't have these guards, is to use, I'll undo this so we can use this as well, is to use Gimp wire or French wire, bullion wire, whatever they call it, Gimp. You can use that as well. If you cut off enough to make the shape of your guard and then pass the wire through, it will give you the same effects. Not too big, not too long, otherwise it won't, the shape won't be that it won't be that nice. So you do exactly the same thing. Put on your crimp. Then pass it through. This is 0.9, so that is wide enough for the 3 strands. You've got to be, your eyesight sort of has to be quite sharp, and the ends of the cord must be sharp too, so that they haven't frayed, to get it into, to get all 3 into the Gimp. So when you've done that, you now put it onto the extender cord. and then back through the tube. Gimp and pull. You can pull one by one so that it's nice and tight. So there you have it. You can pull it tighter than this if you want, so that your gimp now stands in the place of the guard that you used on the other side. So you could use a guard or you could use gimp. It all depends on whichever one you want to use. You could use it on both sides. It will still give you the same effect. Then you crimp your cover, you crimp your tube and use a crimp cover if you want. So that's two methods. Another method is to use to bead your bracelet. In this instance, I used bead along stringing wire. This is 19 strands, but I normally use the 47 because it's stronger. So I suggest if you're using this, you could use something like 47. So I use the 19 for this, and in this instance, I use the same beads, but you can use, of course, you can design whatever you want to, you know, your own design. So after beading the 3 strands that I have here, what I did on each end was to use tiny beads. You can see the tiny gold beads in between. I use tiny gold beads just to make sure that the end doesn't bulk. And then I used bigger beads. I passed all strands, the 3 strands, through bigger beads and then onto my crimp. I didn't use a guard this time because it's 3 strands. You can, if you get a big enough guard, you can, but it's thick, so I didn't use a guard. Onto the closure, the same thing with this side. The 3 strands, I used the 3 tiny beads, 3 tiny beads here, so that it doesn't bulk up. And then I passed the 3 wires through bigger beads into my crimp tube, put on the catch, and then I will crimp and cover. So if you want to use an extender, you can put an extender on to this end here, or you can take this off and use your extender, the ring of the extender, as your closure. So that is another method, by putting the beads, all the strands, through bigger beads. The last one, the last method I used, which is nice, it's neat as well, and it also forms another style. Now let's say we've beaded the 3 strands or number of strands that you want. I did 3 in this case, just so that you can see what we're doing. So we've got 3 strands. Now on each strand, I used the 19 strand bead along wire as well for this one. So on each strand, I finished off with the tiny seed beads, just so that it doesn't bulk at each end. Put the wire through a crimp and put it through a soldered ring, jump ring. That's a soldered jump ring on each end. So each end, I finished it with a soldered jump ring. They each have soldered jump rings on each of the strands. Now on each strand, once I've done that, remember, if your strands are different beads, then when you're putting them together, you need to put them together in the same order that you have done this end. Now at the end, I took the 3 strands, the 3 soldered jump rings, and put them onto a split ring. That split ring, I also put the clasp on the split ring. So you need to put them in the same order that you did the other end. So let's finish this one. You lay it down in this same order and then put them on. This is the split ring. So let me open that. You can use a jump ring if you've got a solid jump ring, a strong one, but I want to use a split ring. So I open my split ring. I'm going to use an extender as well. So I'll put my extender on just in case. And then I will also add all of these in the same order that they are on here. So this is the first one. This is the second one. And this is the third one. Remember, each one should have been crimped. I just didn't finish crimping it because I just wanted to show you how you could finish the multiple rows. So there you've got your bracelets. You can see that the ends are in the same, added on the same at the same length. There's no, let me take this off so you can see what we're doing. Yes, so the rows are on in the same order so that the bracelet will sit nicely. We've put on an extender, so when you want to put it on, you can just use the end of the, you could use the split ring, or if it's too tight, you can use any of the links in the extender. So that is the third method of finishing off a multiple row bracelet. So for this week, that is what we have: 3 methods or 4 methods of finishing off a multi-row bracelet without using a multi-row closure or using a guard. The first one is using soldered jump rings. Another method is putting them all the strands into one bead, that is the 3 strands, turning it into a 1-strand bracelet. And the last method was using your guard or just using Gimp at the end and putting on an extended chain. So that's what we have for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. We aim to release our videos every Friday at 7 o'clock, at 7 p.m. So hit the subscribe button so that you know exactly when our videos come out. If you have any questions or anything you would like to know, you can send me a message through the YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whichever one you like, and I'll endeavor to get back to you. Thank you very much for this week. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.